Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to episode 10 of Meet the Retailers. I am your host, Stacey Mooney, and I am excited to have 3 more retailers this week for all of us to learn from. And I want to also give a shout out to our awesome sponsor, Capital Rivers Commercial. Greg Aguirre and his group are fantastic people working out of the California market. If you need a really awesome full service, great group of brokers and specialists to work with your brand, I would really encourage you to reach out to Greg. They work all over the country as well, but we've gotten a chance to get to know them, and they're a fantastic group. You can check them out at capitalrivers.com. But without further ado, I want to introduce you to this week's guest. We have Meredith Lenore with McDonald's. Meredith, thank you for joining us this morning. We have Angie Kenyon with Frank Pepe's Pizzeria. And we have Efrain Corona with Quick Quack Car Wash. Try saying that 10 times fast. You won't even make it to the second one, I promise. All right. So like every week, we are going to ask our guests a series of questions and try to get some answers for you, our audience, on their site criteria, site specifications, and various other questions. And at the end of my questions for our guests, we will have a Q&A session at the end where you can ask your questions utilizing the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, which you can post throughout the webinar, and we'll try to get those answered for you. Really quick, before we jump into these questions, I do want to let you guys know we get a lot of emails from you guys about how to get that site criteria and contact information that we promise on each episode. And so you get typically 2 emails. You get an email at the conclusion of the webinar that just says, thank you for joining us. And then Erica or myself follows up with an email that has buttons on that email that allows you to download the spec sheets from our guest. So be sure to look out for both of those. There are 2 different ones. One is just a thank you that comes immediately following the webinar. The other one typically goes out on Friday afternoon or no later than Monday. And again, when you scroll to the bottom of the email, there are 3 buttons that allow you to download those spec sheets. So hope that clears it up for everybody. Obviously, if you continue to have any problems, please reach out to us. We're happy to help you. So let's get into this. First question for our guest, Meredith, I'll start with you. If you could just share a little bit about your background, your role at McDonald's. If you'd like to share the history of McDonald's, you're welcome to, but I think most of us are very well familiar with McDonald's, but it's always interesting to hear the history of the company. So if you'd like to jump into that, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure. So I have been with McDonald's for about 6 years, since 2014. I started as a deal maker down in the Florida territory, Tampa Bay area, before moving to Nashville and moving into my current role. So McDonald's does have a long history on owning or securing the best real estate we possibly can. We've been in the business of real estate development for over 60 years. I'm sure many of you knew some of the history of McDonald's. Isn't a hamburger company; it's a real estate company and whatnot. So we do have that history. We're very, very proud of it. And we just want everybody out there to know that we are continuing to develop. So happy to speak with everybody today about that.
Awesome. Thank you. And real quick, what is the territory that you cover?
Sure. So I have a team of really, really good deal makers that cover the southeastern portion of the United States for our new and relocation deals. My team also covers our special venue opportunities. So those malls or airports or train stations or military bases, those opportunities that are outside of our traditional freestanding restaurants, my team handles those as well.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Efrain, we're going to go to you. Let's learn a little bit about Quick Quack Car Wash. I mean, I'm going to have to concentrate every single time I say that. And I'd like to know about your role with the company and, again, the territory that you cover, please.
Great. So thank you for inviting me too. I appreciate it. So my role with the company is as the Director of Real Estate Development, and the territory that I oversee development for the entire company. We are currently in 5 states. We're in California, we're in Arizona, in Utah, Texas, and Colorado. And we have some sub-markets in those areas that we focus on. The company's started back in 2004 in the Sacramento market. I came to the company in 2015. When I got here, there were 17 locations, and just last week we opened up number 105.
Wow.
So we are aggressively developing and looking for some really high quality retail locations.
And I'm sorry if you said how long ago did Quick Quack, when was it established?
2004.
2004. Okay.
Yeah, it actually started it had a different name at the time. It was Splash and Dash Car Wash, but we had an acquisition at some point in the Texas market, and the name Quick Quack was already there, and our marketing guy said, "Give me the duck, I can run with
it." Give me the duck.
Here we are.
I love it. Okay, thank you so much. Angie, I know you have worked for some really awesome concepts over the years, and now you are with Frank Pepe's. Can you tell me about the brand and your role there?
Sure. Thank you, and thank you for including me for today. I greatly appreciate that. Frank Pepe's is actually one of the oldest restaurant concepts in the entire United States, started in 1925. I just was hired during this pandemic as their chief development officer. So via Zoom, I was actually hired. I just met them this past Tuesday. I flew up to Connecticut to meet everyone. So it's my first time really meeting the CEO, COO, and everyone involved in the company. So, but I'm excited to be part of their team. So it's a very family-owned business. It's going to continue to be a family-owned business. Their expansion plans are really into Florida, DC Metro, and Texas eventually, not immediately, but more focused on Florida and DC. Probably only building 3 to 4 stores a year, so not big, typical my growth, which is 20 to 100 stores a year type of companies that I tend to be with. This will be a smaller growth rate because they are all family owned, and that's on a base of 11 existing stores, and we have 1 store under construction right now. And most of them are all based in Connecticut. We have Rhode Island, 1 in New York, and a couple in Massachusetts as well. So pretty much all in the Northeast, and just starting to come down into Florida and DC and Texas.
Got it. Thank you. I'm looking forward to learning more about the brand. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. We're going to next jump into, I guess, Meredith, I'll start with you. We always like to ask our guests how many units they typically grow by year over year, and then kind of piggybacking on that, I guess asking how many units were planned pre-COVID, and if you've adjusted those numbers, and what it looks like today in terms of your growth over the next, say, 18 to 24 months.
Sure. So admittedly, McDonald's has been super up and down in our new store growth development plan over the past, call it a decade. So, 1 year we would aim for 250 openings across the United States the following year. And then a couple years later, it would be less than 50. So that approach obviously isn't sustainable for us from a pipeline perspective, but I have to also imagine that it was somewhat frustrating for the development community out there. So the approach that we're taking today is that we're going to be developing more stores across the United States than we have over the past several years. But we are very much aiming for sustainable year-over-year growth. So I don't have a hard and fast number for you, but while we are developing across the country, the numbers are going to be somewhat skewed towards specific markets. So, if we do 100 deals in the next 12 months, which is feasible, they're probably 40 to 50% of those are going to be in Florida, Texas, the Carolinas, the Southwest, and the West Coast. And those are either areas that obviously are having extreme population growth, which creates opportunity for us, or markets where we just don't have the McDonald's density that we do in other parts of the United States, like the West Coast. To answer your question, our development strategy has not changed from pre-COVID to post-COVID. We are still actively developing. We did push back some ground breaks to 2021 that were scheduled for the end of 2020, just to provide a little bit of financial liquidity for our owner operators. But our development plan is exactly the same as it was pre-COVID.
Gotcha. Wow, that's still a lot of growth. So, and you said you and your team are over the Southeast.
Southeast and special venues, correct.
Gotcha. I'm just curious, and you may not have this data, but when you say, I think you said 1,200 units, is that right? I'm sorry, how many units did you say you wanted to grow by? I missed.
I said that maybe 100 would be feasible over the next 12
And
months.
so,
So,
of those 100, are those traditional McDonald's with drive-throughs, or does that also encompass the specialty locations that you referenced at the beginning?
sure, the special venues are included in that number, but they're pretty sporadic. They're long-term negotiations. You know, they come up. We don't really control those. There as opportunities come up in these venues, like airport RFPs, requests for proposals, and things like that. So our special venues are rolled into that overall number. And let me clarify, that's not 100 openings, that's 100 deals approved and moving forward over the next 12 months.
Gotcha. Okay.
But that's not a hard and fast number. It can move one way or another. But we are very, very active out there today.
Got it. And of those, those plans for growth, are those all with your preferred developers or area developers, franchisees, or how many of those are corporate versus franchise driven?
So McDonald's controls all the development. So McDonald's corporately will do corporate leases, or will buy the property as McDonald's, and then it will get franchised to a local owner operator. Only about 5% of our U.S. restaurants right now are corporately owned or corporately run. The others are local owner operators. That is the model that we are most often continuing with, is the local owner operator.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Let's see, Angie, I know that you just touched on their growth, and it's smaller because of it being family owned. But when you say they're going to add maybe 3 units a year, are they focused on adding any of those units in the existing, like up in Connecticut, or do you think that they're really focused on kind of growing, for example, Florida, like you mentioned, where those units might be in the Florida, all focused on Florida, or is it just kind of opportunity driven?
No, Florida and DC initially, and they'll continue to grow some in the Northeast as well. So, but maybe say 1 store in the Northeast, and between Florida and DC, somewhere 3 to 4 stores. So the focus for the South is really more so the Southeast.
And they don't have any plans of, at this point, franchising. They'll just continue to be corporate/family owned.
All family owned, yeah. All family owned, yes.
Okay.
No franchisees at all. So maybe some joint ventures. They did a joint venture for the store in New York. So possibly some joint ventures, but predominantly all owned by the family.
When you say joint venture, are you talking kind of like what, say, Outback does with proprietorship?
Just sheerly from an investment perspective.
Gotcha.
So no operational rights, no development rights, just predominantly just from a cash investment perspective.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Efrain, so let's talk about your situation in terms of units or percentage of growth over the next 18 to 24 months. What does that look like for you guys? How many car washes are you looking to add?
Yeah, we're pretty aggressive right now. When we started this year, we had a plan or a goal of breaking ground and opening 1 store per week. Just before COVID hit, we were probably about 2 to 3 off of that pace. And we fell a little bit behind with some of the slowdown that happened over the last 60 days. So I think we'll probably end up this year in the range of probably between 27 to 32 new locations. And our goal is still to try and hit that 1 ground break and 1 opening per week for the next couple of years. Yeah, next 24 months, that's kind of the plan. We usually will take the last 2 weeks of the year off. So that puts us right about 50 per year is what our goal is.
Wow. And that's in the 5 states you're currently in right now, or are you looking to expand that 5 state?
So we're researching some new markets in the same states. And there's a couple of some discussion about a couple other states, but right now the way the car wash industry works is we really like to focus on a market and really plant our flag there with at least 5 to 6 locations in a market. and then we'll start to bring some more friends along as we go. But we want to really focus on the markets that we're working on now.
I'm just curious, what is unique about Quick Quack? What are, I mean, is it, do you have attendees, or is it just the drive-through self-serve? What is the brand look like? I'm nowhere near one, so.
Yeah, soon, maybe.
Yeah.
So the concept is, it is what's called an exterior only express car wash. So our main focus is our membership program. Our members pay a monthly fee, and they get to come and wash their car as many times as they want. When they show up on site, they're greeted by an attendant who's dressed very cleanly with a tie, white shirt, just looks very clean, because we're promoting cleanliness, so that's what we're doing. The attendant will take their order, and then they'll load the customer onto our conveyor. The customer will put the car in neutral, and it'll take them about maybe 2 to 3 minutes to get through the wash. And then when they come out on the other end, car's nice and clean, it's dry. They have an option to pull around to our vacuums that we have that are free for our customers, and they can vacuum their own car out, or they can just drive on and get about their day. There's no detailing that's happening on site, nothing like that.
Gotcha.
Unless the customer wants to park and do their own work on their own vehicle. It's truly just exterior only, and it's intended to be a convenience stop. I mean, our customers are the folks that are doing their shopping, and they want to be in and out very quickly. And then just to answer the question about unique, what's really unique about us is really, outside of the wash, is really our culture. It's pretty amazing.
Are your hours longer than typical car washes, or like, I guess you still have to have the attendee that greets the person that comes. So do you have, I mean, I'm thinking, the traditional car washes where you come in and the guys are there washing it, do you have longer hours because of your setup?
No, actually we don't. So we're 7 to 9 are our typical hours, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. In the winter months, depending on where the location we're at, we'll go 7 to 7.
Got it.
So we're not open very late, and we just
that's pretty late. I don't know. Where I'm at, the ones that are actually attended, they're like, closing down at 4 or something. So I think that's pretty good.
That concept that you're talking about really is a heavy labor type of use, and that's not what we are. We have typically 2 to 3 team members on site, depending on what our volume is. So it's lower labor costs for us, and we're able to manage, anywhere from 350 to 500 cars a day, and some of our locations are well over 1,000 a day. So.
Wow. And I'm sorry, I don't think you touched on this. Are they all? What's the structure in terms of corporate versus franchise driven?
Yeah, Quick Quack operates all car washes, so there are no franchise agreements. They're all corporate owned.
Wow. Okay, that's great. Thank you. I was getting ready to go into my next question, but I have to hold back. I'll ask you on the next round. Okay, right. Angie. Angie, I'm curious. Let's talk about what Frank Pepe's looks like in terms of the brand, the offerings. We actually had a guest ask a question that I was going to ask anyway, so I'll go ahead and throw this in there too. They were curious about, so for example, you talked about entering the DC and Florida markets, and there's an abundance of pizzerias and that use category. How is your brand different than others? What sets you apart?
Well, certainly the pizza itself. It's the number one, depending on who reviewed it, it's the number one pizza, definitely within the top 5 pizzas in the entire country. So it is the best pizza. I just had it this past week for the first time. So it's phenomenal pizza. They make a great clam pizza. It's all, the dough's made from scratch. It's the proprietary tomatoes that they get from Italy that they bring in. So it's, secret formula recipes that they use, and the way they do their dough is entirely different. So it's a very different product than typical pizza, I would say. So it is just the product itself that's really phenomenal, and people, it's really a sought out after brand. People go out of their way to in New Haven to come to Frank Pepe's. It's sort of a, big thing to go to Frank Pepe's. So really just the quality of the brand, the name of the brand, and the experience with the pizza. But it's 100% pizza. We have 2 salads, a Caesar salad and a house salad. That's all we offer. And beer, wine, and soda, pretty much.
That was going to be my question. So you don't have other Italian dishes. It's strictly pizza and the 2 salads.
Pizza. Yeah, strictly pizza, doing almost 3 million AUV. So it's a really high performing pizza concept. Yeah, lines out the door. So, it's such a unique type of brand. That's its real advantage. It's just the name of the brand, the quality of the product.
And I know you said that obviously you're in the Northeast right now. Somebody asked, does that include New Jersey?
No.
Any plans for New Jersey? Okay.
Jersey. No, just only the one in New York and Yonkers.
Got it. And no plans to go to New Jersey?
No plans to go to New Jersey. They'll have to come down here.
Pizza connoisseurs want to know. Okay.
No, they'll have to come to Florida.
Got it. I know you're like, I keep telling you DC and Florida people, but somebody's going to say, what about Idaho? Are you going to go to Idaho?
No, DC and Florida.
Okay. We're going to talk about site criteria, what attributes make a good site for each of your respective brands. Meredith, I'm going to start with you. If you could just touch on, I think, in a traditional McDonald's setting, land size that you require, any preferred co-tenancy, demographics that are important to you, any of those hot button items that you guys look for, please.
Sure. So we're looking at about an acre and a half, depending on what offsite improvements are given, if it's offsite access, offsite retention, and whatnot. We love to be on the pad of a grocery anchored shopping center. We do look at surrounding uses as generators for our business. The hardest site criteria with McDonald's, I think everybody on here would be aware, is just proximity to another McDonald's. We do have 14,000 restaurants in the United States. So demographics, we're really looking for those areas that are green and growing, that we can enter the market and secure the best location at maybe a little bit early, waiting for that the rest of that housing population to pop in. So that's where a lot of our opportunity is, and what we talked about earlier with the population growth. But that's what we're looking at today, is just areas that we're not currently in, that we're not currently servicing, which is difficult in itself. But do have the population today, and we think the population is going to continue to grow over the next several years.
Do you look for any type of co-tenancy, or are there other, businesses that are kind of a marker for you of what, would be a good McDonald's location, whether that's grocery or other QSRs or?
No, we obviously, if we have, pad of a shopping center, a Publix in Florida, for instance, we're often on a Publix pad, but that's not a requirement for us. We will go standalone on a corner in an area that we still feel has the population. We call it home, work, and shop. So it still has those 3 components that will generate enough customer interest in the McDonald's to sustain. But we look at each individual site differently. So we're not saying we're only going to go within, Publix pads, or, I think it used to be Walmart. We always looked at the Walmart pads. That's no longer the case.
Gotcha. And just so that our audience knows, in terms of deal structure, are you open to build a suit, purchase, ground lease, all of them are on the table?
Sure. We much prefer to purchase, but we will ground lease as well. We do not have a build to suit option at this point. So it's either a long-term ground lease or a purchase.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All
right. Let's talk about quick quacks. I'm doing that to see if I get better at it through the hour. It's so far, no. Let's talk about your site criteria. Again, same question to you: land size, type of deal structure, any co-tenancy preferences, and if I'm curious what your kind of core customer profile looks like, if you could touch on that.
Sure. Yeah. So our site criteria, we're looking for just under an acre. Our optimal lot size is probably going to measure like 180 by 220 or 230. We are a little bit rectangular, so that's really what we're going after. We like to be in the shopping centers is what we're going after now. We've had some really great success with Costco co-tenancy. We've got a few sites there. We've got one in particular here in Sacramento that's doing probably close to 1,200 cars a day. So we work really well with those guys. We really are looking for the daily needs shopper, the convenience stops. So like QSR near us, a lot of shopping, and we're looking for daytime population as well. So we find that where we have the workers, we're doing really well as well. And we typically, we also prefer to purchase. We will ground lease for the right location, but we usually always try to negotiate a right of first offer in the ground leases. So we really want to own the property.
Gotcha. Thank you. And in terms of, is everyone your customer, or do you find that your brand appeals to, males from whatever, 30 to 35 or something, or what's
Yeah, it's a really good question. We've been analyzing that recently, and we found that we've got locations now that are existing that are doing really well, and the demographics for each of these locations really varies. So I don't know that we have a single customer.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to say the most reliable customer is the, probably the minivan person with a couple of kids and doing the daily needs shopping. That's really,
you got to vacuum out all those Cheerios and goldfish,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, you'd be amazed what we find in those vacuums every day when we clean them out.
I believe
we had one of our team members fished out a diamond ring for a customer who had accidentally sucked up her ring into the
wow.
vacuum system.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, she's lucky they found it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it makes sense. Most people like to have a clean car. It probably just depends on the frequency more than the actual difference in the customer. But thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Angie, can you talk to us about the site, what the layout for Frank Pepe's is, and your any co-tenancy preferences, things like that?
Sure. So we prefer end cap or freestanding. We are not developers. We will lease the buildings and the locations. A little bit more square of a footprint of a building because the pizza oven is a 16 by 16 square oven that they build from the ground up. So that takes up kind of the big central part of the entire restaurant. So a square format is better for us as well, versus a long, narrow location won't work for us. And I would say at the moment, again, I agree with Efron, is we don't really quite know who our core customer is. Like, we've always been in high-end markets with high income demographics, and that's what's worked for Frank Pepe. However, as every brand expands, you don't know, if that works in a lower income market or not. And pizza is pretty popular amongst really across all segments of people. So our age range is 18 to 54, which is almost everybody. So pizza does appeal to most everyone. So I think it has a really broad range, but they haven't really tested it in lower income markets to say it's equally as effective in these lower income markets. So at the moment, our approach will be to go into more higher income demographics, such as South Miami or Pinecrest, somewhere on Biscayne, south of I-195, near Design District, in that marketplace. Those kind of would be my ideal pinpoints at the moment. As the brand builds, it may expand into other markets as well, but that's my first approach in how I will look at sites.
Okay, and I'm sorry, did you say the square footage? I know you said square and cap.
Yeah, more square, but the square footage, so historically it's been around 3,300, 3,500 square feet, but since this COVID virus, their percentage of takeout has been huge. In fact, the stores have been doing 110, 135% higher sales than prior year sales based on just pure takeout and delivery. So we're looking at a smaller footprint, but right now I would say somewhere between 2,500 to 3,200 square feet would be a range we would look at. I don't want to go too small and determine that this is going to continue to operate this way. So a balance of those two, but we are looking at smaller spaces now.
Gotcha. And in terms of types of shopping centers or co-tenancy, do you have a preference toward, based on what you said earlier, like a lifestyle situation or a grocery anchor or
more Whole Foods? I mean, I'd say a Whole Foods would be positive for us. Costco is positive for us. Shake Shack, they do well near Shake Shack. But again, and probably Chipotle's, but again, not as broad as Chipotle at the moment. But those are the kind of the anchors that they determined so far. And we still have to do a lot of more research into who is our core customer. Being such a smaller family-owned brand, like a lot of brands, they don't exactly know who their core customer is. So it's a little bit more discovery in that area that we need to do. But at the moment, that's who we believe is our good co-tenancies for us.
Gotcha. Are you ready to execute? So if you had a site right now, or they're ready to move forward with those? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Hear that, everybody?
Alrighty.
South Florida, like by Pinecrest, Angie wants to hear from you.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about our favorite subject, COVID, because we can't have any conversations without talking about that, right? So just want to learn a little bit from all of you about I guess any systems that were put in place, like Meredith and Angie, maybe that is about more of the takeout or partnerships with folks like Grubhub and Uber Eats or things like that. Any modifications to your typical footprint that you maybe are looking at adjusting going forward because of what you've learned? Meredith, I'll start with you. I guess the first thing would be what systems have been put in place to make your customer feel safer, and of those, what do you think you will continue to do going forward?
Yeah. So McDonald's was really lucky in that some of the business systems and platforms that we had implemented prior to COVID really helped guide us through what, I hope, knock on wood, was the worst of that pandemic. So, everybody's aware that our drive-through is a huge portion of our business. But even pre-COVID, we had formed partnerships with 3 different development companies, Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. Mobile order pay was already in place. Curbside pickup was already in place. So the COVID crisis put more emphasis on those platforms, but they were already implemented. So it's not something we had to create just for COVID. From a development standpoint, McDonald's is taking a bit of a cautious approach in not making sweeping changes right now due to the crisis. We aren't, actively pursuing drive-through only locations. We're still building our prototypical 4,400 square foot building right now. So for the time being, we're going to continue as we were pre-COVID, with the caveat that we may pivot once we fully understand how customers' habits and their preferences either change for the long term or start moving back to normalcy.
Gotcha. I'm curious, did you see, with respect specifically to the third-party delivery systems, did you see a big spike in that?
We did. We had already, I think we were the industry leader as far as delivery went before, and that continued to grow. Our share continued to grow. So we did see a large spike. It was, I think, probably the month or 2 before that we had actually introduced DoorDash and Grubhub before we were solely with Uber Eats. So that was advantageous that we had already formed those other 2 relationships. But yeah, we saw a huge spike in delivery during the COVID crisis.
Do you, I'm trying to think. So I know, I still remember being in, elementary school and going to McDonald's and playing at Playland, which was outside, that had patios. But I don't think you guys, do you think you're going to increase your patio presence at all as a result of this? Or, because I know some have them and some don't. That's correct, right?
Some do. They're limited now, and very few have the outdoor play place anymore. If anything, it's interior.
Right.
So we're still incorporating play elements because we are family focused. So, play elements with the tables, different game tables and things like that. But there has been a little bit of pullback on the actual play land of McDonald's. We're not doing those as often. There are still some interior play places that are moving forward, but not as many as you would have seen 20, 30 years ago.
I was more referring to the patio component. Do you feel like the patio outdoor eating area is,
Okay.
I mean, a lot of our guests have talked about the importance of increasing that outdoor space going forward. Do you see McDonald's addressing that specifically?
We haven't yet. We are. We do have specific new developments that are moving forward with outdoor seating. It really depends on just the market. You know, if it's going to be utilized or not more than a couple of months out of the year, just given the, you know, we're across the United States, so we're not going to be putting a whole lot of outdoor patios in Minnesota anytime soon. But there is outdoor seating in quite a few of our restaurants. We probably will still continue to look at that. But again, we haven't made a policy shift towards emphasizing that at that point due to COVID.
Wait and see mentality, it sounds like.
Wait and see how customers' habits kind of pivot or start creeping back towards some semblance of normalcy. So we'll see.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'm going to actually go to Angie, just so in keeping with kind of the restaurant theme here. Two things. Are you, when you're saying you're going to go to DC and Florida, is that because you feel like maybe there's some customer familiarity because a lot of New Yorkers come down to Florida? Or what's driving the decision to go to those two markets specifically? Do they have homes there?
I think they all have homes in Florida or possibly DC as well. But yes, definitely the relationship of, you know, Northeastern people moving to Florida, that is a big part of it for sure. DC, you know, and again, high income, highly educated markets is who they, again, believe is their core market or the better markets for them to expand into. So that's why I think that the focus on DC. But kind of was a decision they had made before I came on board. It wasn't part of me making that decision, so I don't know all the conversations before that. But certainly I think the relationship or percentage of people from Connecticut that either have second homes here or are moving here is certainly a big influencer just in general from people from the Northeast.
Gotcha. And have you, what has been their, I know you mentioned that their takeout or delivery has been like huge since all of this. Do they partner with third-party deliveries or do their own deliveries?
Third-party deliveries, yes. I think it depends on the marketplace, but Grubhub, DoorDash, you know, like for instance, they were here in Delray, it might be Delivery Dudes. It just depends on who the local kind of key delivery company is.
Gotcha. And have they made any changes to like their dining area because of COVID that they're going to keep in place? Or are they just kind of keeping their same format?
You know, it's interesting because in Connecticut, they haven't quite opened yet. So June 22nd, they'll start opening restaurants. So they haven't even opened to the public. They're still just doing predominantly all takeout and delivery. But they are going to put the, you know, plastic between the booths, you know, the
plastic screens.
Yes, exactly. Any other extreme measures? I don't know. Don't think so necessarily. So didn't kind of get that feel from them and visiting them this past week. You know, but I do think them looking at the footprint change possibly. And again, just same as Meredith, we're not going to do something extreme. Just feel it out. See how consumers do respond. Do they continue to still take out, or now that they can go out, is everybody going out to restaurants and wanting to go back to their so-called normal lives? And you know, the delivery piece starts to decline. So we just have to see how that transpires. But you know, our thought is we can afford to probably go to a little smaller footprint, most likely. That's how we're viewing it at the moment. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know about any big operational other changes they're going to make.
Yeah, restaurants have been interesting. I know I was just speaking with Barry Wolf. For any of you guys out there in the LinkedIn world, everybody knows Barry, but we were having a conversation about kind of our first venture out to restaurants. And and just what that's like with everybody wearing, you're trying to order food and they're wearing masks, and it's strange, right? I mean, you're trying to be like normal, but we're all kind of trying to figure out exactly what this looks like, and it's a little bit awkward, and maybe we all get used to that after we've done it a few times. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see what sticks going forward. So, okay, Quick Quack, I assume, was able to be open through the duration of all of this. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, we actually we were able to keep all of our locations open. We had, when we first had the first shelter in place order come through, we immediately got together as an executive team, and we put together what we thought would be our model of our worst case scenario, and kept watching that daily. But for the locations, what we found is that our concept is really quite safe. There's very few touch points with the public. The customer stays in their car. Immediately, our first objective was to protect our team members. So we implemented the gloves, we implemented the face coverings. So I mean, really, the only touch point between our customer and our team members was the dash wipe. So they would hand the dash wipe to the customer. So we really found that it was very safe for us. In all of our 105 locations, 3 of them were closed, and only 1 of them was closed for more than 30 days. It was in a county that was very aggressive with, shutting down a business that they deemed not essential. We reached out immediately to a lot of the local environmental health agencies when it started happening, and we spoke with them. We were proactive about what our service is, and we're helping to keep vehicles clean. In Texas, we were actually deemed as essential immediately because the governor of Texas indicated that when we're doing out our shopping for using all the essential services that were open, the first thing you do is you walk to your car and you put your hand on your car to open it, or your window, or your dashboard, or your steering wheel. So Texas was not an issue at all. It was more in the California market where we had our closures, but we weathered it really well, and we stayed open. We're able to stay open. Our memberships actually are increasing. So all in all, it was not a bad experience for us, with the exception of having to limit our hours a little bit here and there.
With your vacuum cleaning stations, were you like wiping those down nonstop, or were you putting any extra effort into those?
Yeah, initially the first reaction was, okay, let's remove every other vacuum stall from use so that our customers were maintaining social distancing. And then we had our team member every hour would go through and wipe down each of the units. In California, we made the decision that we were going to eliminate vacuums temporarily, just because it was a big chore, and some of our larger locations have 20 vacuum stalls, so it became a real time to wipe everything down and keep it clean. And there were questions out there by some of the customers: is, are you really keeping it clean? So we decided, all right, let's shut down the vacuums. We'll do the wash only. We did not charge memberships any of the locations that we were closed at. We didn't charge the memberships. We suspended those for those times. So I mean, really, the vacuums have come back slowly. We're still at every other vacuum in California. Every other market, though, we're back with full vacuums.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could see how that would be kind of hard to clean those vacuums. They're the overhead ones, I assume, and probably pretty time consuming.
Yeah, it's the where the customer grabs it and uses it. That was the area of concern. We were thinking about possibly offering gloves for our customers, but some people just kind of toss them wherever they feel they toss them. So we decided, all right, we're going to keep our places clean. We'll just put it in the vacuum.
Creating another problem, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sure. Okay, so let's talk about just site submittal. Meredith, I'll start with you. I guess my first question is, do you utilize brokers in all of your markets?
Yes. So we have 18 deal makers right now that cover the entire United States. And by McDonald's standards, that's pretty large territory, so multiple state territories. So we're embracing and utilizing the brokerage community more than we ever have before. We do leave it up to our individual deal maker on how to manage their brokers, specific areas or specific markets.
Okay, and so it's been interesting when I asked this question with retailers. I assumed that I was going to know the answer initially, but it's actually different every person I speak to. So do you, and I realize what you just said, you've got several different deal makers and recognizing that each one may have a different system, but in general, would you say that you like to see the sites alongside with your broker in terms of site submittal? Not, of course you do site visits to approve a site, but in terms of, for our audience, they've got a site to present. Do you prefer that your brokers kind of screen those so you're not getting inundated with sites, or do you like to actually be a part of those site submittals?
I think the safest thing to do is send it directly to the deal maker of that territory, the McDonald's deal maker, and then allow them to either decide if they want to vet it themselves or funnel it through one of their brokers that they're utilizing.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I would have expected that type of answer, but we actually, we have some retailers who say we get so many emails, we're using our broker to do that service for us, and otherwise we can't keep up. So I think it's always good to know, because I think, having been on the landlord side for 20 years, all you want is a response, right? Like, did they get it? And so actually on that note, sometimes I like to ask if there's anything anyone has done with respect to a site submittal that's really stood out in your mind that got your attention, or even on the other side, like maybe annoyances or pet peeves that people do where you're like, man, I wish they would stop doing that, so that our audience can put together more thought out site submittals and hopefully get a response from you in turn.
Yeah. So, first, I can guarantee you my team will be responsive. You will get a yes, no, or let me look into it before. They're really, really good at that. But I think a couple of things that have stood out are, I don't need a whole demographic package. We're going to run all that through our internal system, our internal trade area system anyway. So I don't need a whole lot, an aerial, address. But what has been helpful is, one, when the developer or broker just takes some time to kind of look at the surrounding McDonald's. That's 90% of the time that's our issue as far as new store development, is just the proximity to other McDonald's locations. And then two, if you're sending something that's in one of those greener kind of growing areas, and that there's some housing or development that's moving in that won't show up on the demographic systems because it's too new or it hasn't opened yet, if you could just provide that to the deal maker, that really helps us adjust our trade area and give you the correct vetting of that site for us. So those are the two things I would say, is just put a little bit of attention into where our surrounding restaurants are. And then if you have some information about new housing that will not show up on our system, provide that.
Do you care about, I guess the first question would be, who do you deem to be your main competitors, and how do you feel, do you want to know where your competitors are in a site submittal?
Sure, that is helpful. Our main competitors, our traditional competitors, are the Wendy's and Burger Kings of the world. I think probably the big QSR competitor out there everybody knows is Chick-fil-A right now. So if they're already in the market, that is helpful to know. A lot of times we could tend to be first in a market, so there may not be as much QSR competition, but yes, that's absolutely helpful to know as well.
Do you shy away from sites where, I wouldn't think so. Okay. But just helpful to know where they're positioned, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Angie, if I could ask you the same question, in terms of, will you be utilizing brokers in your search in these new markets, or will they just be for now running those sites through you?
No, I have preferred broker is Chris Barney, is who I'm using for Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach at the moment. And ideally to go through Chris, I prefer, versus coming through me as an initial filter. I prefer that it goes to Chris initially. And in DC, they have been using someone named Greg Hubbard. I'm flying up at the end of the month to meet him. So I haven't met him yet myself, but that's who they have been using. Yeah, I prefer it goes through the broker before me.
Is there anything in those site submittal packages that are, that you think are more helpful, whether that's, do you want to see the competition within 3 miles? Do you want to see where anchors are, anything like that that would help our audience in terms of submitting sites to you?
I think what's key really is the dimension of the space, is just to see that. So if it's a long, narrow space, it's pretty much not going to work. I need, a decent amount of width and parking. Parking
What
will
is
be
that?
really.
I'm just sorry to interrupt you, but when you say decent amount of width, is that 40 feet, 60 feet?
Yeah, ideally 60 by 40, if I could say that's a great size. Actually bigger than that, 7 by 40 would be, more 70 by 40. But I need a decent amount of width in the building. Nothing that's narrow at all, or 100-foot depth is not going to work. And parking at a minimum, I would say at a minimum 28, 30 spaces. Ideally, they want 50. I know that's much harder to find, but the parking is going to be a real key part of the equation for me.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, parking doesn't seem to come up as often as it should until like it's an
Don't
issue.
have it.
Like,
And
wait,
there's a
there's no parking.
problem.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Efrain, you wanna talk a little bit about how you like the sites to be submitted? Anything that's particularly important that you like to see?
Yeah, so we also utilize a network of key brokers and preferred developers. Your sponsor is one of our brokers. He works with us in the Northern California market. But I get sites in a couple of different ways, and I really don't mind how they come to me. It's nice when the broker gets it and they kind of do a little bit of vetting for us, and then they bring it to us. I get a lot of sites direct that we have actually acted on. And usually if I receive a site, I'll take a quick look at it. Usually try to get back to them as quickly as possible, and I get it to the appropriate person for that market. The thing that bugs me the most is probably I get a lot of locations that are probably more appropriate for Angie. We're trying to do ground up construction, and I get a lot of tenant spaces ready. So maybe I'll just forward them over to you, Angie.
Yeah, there you go.
As far as the space, I mean, kind of talked about the area that we need is just under an acre, but mostly it's we'll use through brokers or I'll take it direct.
I'm curious, what is like access really important to you, or are you more destination driven for the car washes?
So it's a little bit of both. Primarily, we're a convenience stop, so we like to have a minimum of 2 points of access. There are that daytime population though, that some of those folks plan their visit to us over their lunchtime. So I guess that kind of makes us a little bit of a destination, but primarily it is convenience for us. So great access, all turning movements is great. Doesn't mean we won't look at a location that does not have all turning movements, but that's really important for us. A couple of points of access is great. So
Gotcha.
It has to be convenient for the customer.
Got to get in and out, and hopefully those members are coming multiple times a week, right? So we want to make it
That's right.
Easy for
That's
them.
right.
Okay,
That's right.
got it. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna kind of lump these two questions into one. We are getting, I can't believe we've got 9 minutes left. It happens every week, but it kind of sneaks up on us. So I want to give each of you the opportunity to share with our audience anything that, utilizing this time or this platform to share anything that's important to you for your brand. That can be any particular market that you really need locations on that you're hyper focused on. It can be something that sets your brand apart. It could be something you're working on new for your brand. Just give you the opportunity to cover anything that we have not already covered and give you that chance. And again, also maybe if you want to talk about what distinguishes your brand from your competition, you can touch on that as well. So I'll just kind of let you guys have a minute or two to talk about anything that maybe we haven't covered today. And I will start with you, Meredith.
Okay, so from what makes McDonald's unique, beyond our size and scope, which I think is pretty evident. What makes McDonald's unique is just our brand recognition, the stability, the comfort factor, and then kind of that mix of Americana that you think of when you think of McDonald's. From a real estate perspective, and we touched on this earlier, we're unique in that we have this long history and tradition of being really committed on owning or controlling the best real estate possible. We have some really jaw-dropping locations across the world, and we emphasize our real estate development every single day. So I think that's pretty unique. What I just want to mention about McDonald's is I'm clearly biased, but I've been really proud in how McDonald's has handled and responded everything that 2020 has thrown at the world. There's been a huge emphasis internally on looking at the long-term implications of the decisions we're making today during this time of volatility. And I think that's evident in our approach to new store development. So, we took a brief hiatus from real estate approval committee in April and May, but we just started back last week. I think we have 18 sites across the country that are being presented for approval in June. So that's what I just want to leave everybody with, is that emphasis that we are still developing, and we urge the development community to continue to think of us and engage us, because we want to hear about your new site opportunities.
I love it. I love it. This is why we do this every week, because we started this mostly because, frankly, Eric and I were depressed because we thought, well, we don't, what's going to happen with Retail Live? There's going to be no retailers left that are looking for sites. And what we have found is in fact that there are exactly what you said, that people are still looking for sites. And I really
100%.
appreciate it. It feels good every time we hear it. So thank you for sharing. Okay, Angie, I want to give you the opportunity to, literally you can share anything about your brand, anything we haven't covered. I know you did touch on your kind of dream locations in South Florida that you and Chris might be working on, but if there's anything that we didn't cover or that you want to share with our audience, I want to give you the opportunity to do so now.
Thanks, Stacy. Well, for sure, I would say Frank Pepe as a pizza concept is definitely superior to probably anything you're going to find in Florida. Probably our closest competitor is going to be Anthony's as far as quality of pizza, but I'm not from the Northeast, but virtually everyone I know from the Northeast is like, there's no good pizza in Florida. So that's a common conversation. So hopefully we will be bringing great pizza to Florida, but it really is phenomenal pizza and just a phenomenal experience. So there's not much to compare it to. It's really, and it's a league of its own. And I think that as we expand into Florida and that, we get that, develop that brand passion for the brand, it's just going to continue to expand. And I hope to see really strong numbers, equally as strong as we have in the Northeast, and hopefully stronger. But I believe that it certainly has the right opportunity to do so, just because there really is not much presence of, phenomenal pizza here, at least according to New Yorkers.
Right.
I'm like, I think all pizza is great pizza.
Are apparently not as, good as the New Yorkers. They have more options. That's why, but that's awesome that you're changing. I hope you're going to, push that boundary north closer to Tampa. For Meredith and I both. Meredith is moving back to Tampa, and I'm just south of Tampa. So we hope you make it this way soon.
I will. We'll get there. For sure.
Okay. Yeah. Efrain, I want to give you the same opportunity to share anything about your brand or anything that we didn't touch on.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. Earlier, you'd made a comment, Stacy, that when you thought of car wash, you think of this location where there's all these people sitting there waiting to jump into your car and maybe see what kind of change you have in your cup holder and things like that.
Right.
That's a really common conception for car wash. Back in 2015, before I came here, that was the perception, and we've really focused and tried to change the perception of the express car wash. I mean, we really are seen differently now over the last 5 years as strong retailers, and we are now being approached by developers to come into their developments. So we've worked really hard at that. People is also a big thing for us. Most car washes, we're the number 4 largest car wash in the United States. There's a huge gap between number 1 and number 4. So nobody's out here screaming, yeah, we're number 4, we're number 4. but the growth that we're showing over the last 5 years by far outpaces anybody in the industry. Our people, what sets us apart in a lot of different ways is our people. Most car washes, when they're building a car wash, they have the same equipment provider, they have the same people installing. It's a very similar process for those folks. For us, we have our own people internally. We have an R&D department that is focused on revolutionizing car wash and how we wash cars. And we're today, our equipment package is very different than what you'll see in a lot of different car washes. And we continue to make advancements, and we're doing it all internal. We don't wait for anyone to show up to our site to do our installs. When our contractor's ready, our team is on site and they're doing the install the way we want to do it. So we have a lot of things that we do very differently than our competitors. So it really sets us apart. And then, our culture is like nothing I've ever been. I've been doing commercial real estate for probably 24 years, and I've never been part of a team that's so great with their culture and with their people. Our whole mission is to change lives for the better, and our partners and our owners are really walking that walk, and they're doing a great job of it. So really happy to be part of this team.
That's fantastic. And you have the duck now, so.
And we've got the duck. Quackles.
I have a question from the audience for you. They want to know, you'd mentioned your Texas is one of your markets that you're expanding in, and they were asking if it's kind of, all of Texas, Austin, Dallas, Houston, or is there, particular areas within Texas that you're focused on, or is it just kind of you're interested in the whole thing?
No, we're focused in certain areas. Like I said, we like to come in clusters. Right now, Houston is a major focus for us. It's a great market for us. We have a number of stores there now. They're doing really well. Corpus Christi is the other market that we're really focused on right now. So those are right now the two. As we start to grow those two markets, then we'll probably start expanding out. But we really, like I said, we like to plant our flag pretty high on these markets before we expand. So, but those are the two that we're really focused on right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you guys, well, time's already up. We are having so much fun. I want to thank all of our guests this morning for joining me and sharing, your site criteria and information about your brand. I know that I appreciate it, and I know our audience appreciates it. And so thank you to all three of you for taking an hour out of your very busy schedules to share that information with us. I appreciate it very much. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. As I said at the beginning, you guys, we will send out that site criteria. Erica, my incredible behind the scenes Oz, that is actually behind that Capital Rivers commercial logo. She doesn't ever want to show her face, but she has got those spec sheets together, and they will actually go out this afternoon. So please keep a lookout for that. It does come from Erica Darling. So you will get all of our guest contact information and site criteria later this afternoon. As a reminder, if anybody on your team wanted to join us this morning but was unable to, the recorded episode will be on our YouTube channel, which is just Retail Live as of Monday. So you can check out the recorded episode there and share it with anybody that you think might find value in today's episode. And finally, thank you again to our awesome sponsor, Capital Rivers Commercial. Again, you can check them out at capitalrivers.com. Aside from, being full service, they're just an incredible group of really fun and ethical and just cool guys. So you should get to know them if you are in the Sacramento area or anywhere else in California, or frankly, nationwide. And that is it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it and you want to check us out next week, please do so. We will be back here on Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Like always, you can register for next week's episode at retaillive.com by clicking the events tab and scrolling down to webinars. That is it for today. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Have an awesome weekend. We'll see you next week.